Morning from beautiful California. I am on my way to Quest Diagnostics to get my blood drawn. That'll then get sent off to InsideTracker and they'll give me my results when I get out there. Not fantastic with needles, but I'll get through it for today. That's my appointment just finished there. They don't allow you to actually take any footage while you're inside for the safety and security. I don't know, something American. The nurse said that it wasn't a lot of blood, but it felt like a lot of blood to me. It's like 10 of those vials. So time to wait and see on what the results say. Find out in Boston next week. Here's a life hack for you. If you want to make your journey through the metal detectors at an airport an awful lot longer, pack a USB condenser mic, which is essentially a huge dildo-sized, dildo-shaped magnet that comes up all colours of the rainbow when you put it through a scanner. Every single time. Hello sir, what is this? It's a microphone. I do podcasts and things. Okay, we're going to have to check it for Schedule 1 drugs and detonatable substances and whatever else there is. But I'm through. Boston, I'm coming for you.
Jonathan and Carrie from InsideTracker. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Good, thanks for having us.
Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
It's awesome. So, can you explain to the listeners at home who you guys are and what InsideTracker is and what it does?
Sure. So we work for InsideTracker. I handle mostly the CrossFit division, and Jonathan handles endurance, but we also are helping people out with their overall health or healthy aging. And what InsideTracker really does is we look at biomarkers in your blood that are scientifically tied to performance, overall health, and longevity. And we create personalized recommendations for foods, supplements, and lifestyle changes to help you get those biomarkers into optimized zones if they're not already in there.
Yeah, it's a serious subject, isn't it? I've just come straight from Mr. David Sinclair's office at the Harvard Medical School, and it seems like longevity and this more analytical assessment. I mean, I'm wearing a Whoop band, right? Like I've got always on heart rate tracking. Is it a trend that you can see at the moment with fitness that people are starting to take this sort of stuff more seriously?
Definitely, and they're starting to care. So I've been at the company for 4.5 years now, and when I started, it was all about, we needed to help explain why this is something you should care about. And now it's at a point where everybody knows what it is. We have to show that we're better and that our platform is more advanced, more analytical, and more personalized than anything else out there.
So the dream's already been sold?
Yes.
Why do you think that's the case? Why are people more bothered now? Are they just looking for marginal gains, or is it just natural movement along with as the technology sort of continues? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think there's more coming out about how you can improve longevity, what you can do to be better about yourself. There's a large group of people that are either getting older or they're seeing their parents get older, probably more likely, at least here in the States with baby boomers. And so people are questioning their own longevity and looking at, like, what can I do so that I don't get like that? Or what can I do so that I can be with my kids, or, something like that. As they get older, and so people are looking for a way to make that actionable.
So I went through the process, as the viewers will be seeing throughout this episode. I went to Quest Diagnostics in Redlands in California, and out the other side of that, I got my bloods drawn. They got sent off to your lab, and then within a few days, I had a bunch of data that I waited for you to interpret on my behalf, because I didn't quite understand what everything was. But it does seem mad to me that it was quite a lot of blood. It was like 10 vials. Well, not that much.
No, maybe like 6.
Yeah.
Felt like 10.
Felt like pints. Felt like pints and pints, but it wasn't. It seems so mad that you guys are able to decipher so much about my diet, my training, my lifestyle, my cortisol levels, my free testosterone, just from a couple of hours of blood that I had drawn on the opposite side of the country like a week ago. It's a mad concept.
It's mad, but if you think about it, people are looking for guidance, and what's the most reliable source of data? It's not how are you feeling today. It's not, it's not these. I have a Garmin and it tracks my sleep quality, and some nights it says I sleep for 3 hours, and some nights it says I'm in bed at 7 o'clock, but I'm not. And people are looking for analytics, and people are familiar with, going to your doctor to get glucose and cholesterol, but it stops there. And there's so much more beyond just, are you sick today, or are you, coming from the performance side of things, who cares how you compare to 300 million Americans or a human in general? It's all about, how do you compare to yourself for someone that's training like you're training, for someone that's eating like you're eating, and then, you might need to be here, or you might need to be here, and you're currently here. And so it's that, 1%, 5%, 10%, whatever it is, that there's benefit to getting there.
You are totally right that it seems so primitive now when I think about the fact that all of us are training in some form, especially if it's for performance.
Right.
You are looking to dial in marginal gains. If you read Ben Bergeron's book, Chasing Excellence, at the bottom he's got character, and then above that he's got process, which is making the most of minutes.
Right.
That is, in its very essence, the highest resolution, highest fidelity look at marginal gains that you can. And it does seem super prehistoric to not be tracking sleep quality with something better than, I think I went to bed at 10 o'clock last night. And the same thing, it would appear now with guys like yourself, is being rolled forward for blood work. I was talking to David, and he said he's got all of his data with you guys since 2011.
Yep.
Yeah,
which is intense.
Yeah, it's a cool part of our platform, is that you can, no matter when you do InsideTracker, you can upload past blood test results and kind of put in a little ping of what you were doing at that time in your life. So you can notice trends and, my, glucose was here at this time of my life. This is what I was doing. Fast forward 6 months. This is the next time I tested. Here's where it was. And, I was doing that. So you can find trends, in the changes that you've made to find out, what can really affect your glucose and how to get that marker to move.
So can you talk to the listeners about some of the athletes that you guys have worked with?
Yeah, we work with, all types of athletes, from CrossFitters like myself who are just, going to stay healthy, to the top tier CrossFit athletes that are going to the games.
Are there any household names that people might know?
Yeah, we've tested, Katrin is a big supporter of ours, Katrin David's daughter. She works with Ben Bergeron, who's talked about InsideTracker before, Cole Sager, Scott Panchik, who's going to the games for the 9th time now. We've worked with Tia. We've worked with all of the CrossFit Mayhem team recently. So a lot of household names that you probably know. Rich Froning. They've done InsideTracker and have found, a lot of value in it. So,
what do you find when you look at these athletes? Is there, obviously we don't need to go into specific details and find out that Katrin's actually got slightly high blood glucose.
We see a lot of trends with especially high-level CrossFit athletes where their CK is usually a little bit higher, which just means it's just a creatine kinase, which is a marker of overtraining. So you would expect to see that marker be a little bit high based on how often they're training, how many hours they're putting in per day. We also have seen glucose in CrossFitters be a little bit on the higher end, which is something that you noticed in your...
Yes.
And it's just because, for whatever reason, they're not eating enough soluble fiber, which is exactly what I think you were told this morning on your consult.
Yeah, so I had yourself and one of your colleagues run me through my results earlier on today. I honestly thought that I wouldn't be I would be further out than I was. I was expecting, after a decade and a half of club promotion and undersleeping and some periods of pretty significant overtraining as well, I was expecting my inner age to come back at 45 and for the just to be like every sound and alarm going off inside of InsideTracker, like the air raid siren goes off and then the red
Somebody
light comes
pick
up.
up this guy, make sure he's not dead.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, but it turns out that it wasn't that bad, and that glucose was a little bit out. Free testosterone was low, which I'm going to guess is typical of people who train a lot. And have some more soluble fiber and stop taking a multivitamin, and then see where you're at in 3 months. What do you see with endurance athletes then?
So for endurance athletes, it's different. It's more micronutrient related. We see 50% of our female population having low ferritin, so the storage form of iron.
Yeah.
So that's 50% of women under the age of 50 that are doing InsideTracker. So this is someone that is proactive about their health and thinking about these types of things. So I would extrapolate to say that the general population of runners is probably a little bit higher than that. So we can say, you know, there's a pretty high chance that by doing this and knowing your numbers, you'll improve your energy.
Yes.
Low testosterone is also a common trend. What else? We see the liver enzymes elevated. We see the creatine kinase elevated. So all of these indicators of overtraining or not resting enough, because like CrossFit running is addictive and you want to do more of it. And these athletes are allergic to rest. And so, you know, it's like, oh, when was your last, like even just trying to schedule the test. Oh, it's best done after a rest day or an easy day. Well, I don't have those. Yeah. Well, it's like, okay, you don't have to do InsideTracker to know that like you should probably have a few of those in your program. So for a lot of people, fundamentally, it's a shift of, okay, here's some data that says you're worked. Maybe we back off a little bit on the volume perspective. And then the other big one is caloric needs. So many runners are running a lot, or even if they're not running a lot, they're running more than they're eating. So they're not eating enough to replenish the energy that they're burning. And so that puts you at risk for injury, and it puts you at risk for overtraining and burnout and all that stuff that, you know, we want to avoid. So when I did my own consult with our dietitian, she basically said you're under by 500 calories every day, and that's not on long run days. So it's like, okay, let's find another meal or another like 2 or 3 snacks.
How does undereating manifest in the blood work?
So for me, it was a combination of high cortisol, LDL was unoptimized, and the free testosterone had gone down a little bit, given an increase in training. So I test quarterly, and I was able to see as my training ramped up, those things all went the wrong way. And so we went through, and also the soluble fiber. And so this was January of 2018, and I'm doing like 20% more mileage than I've ever done, eating more and getting more results. And I haven't been injured, knock on wood, but it was a no-brainer. Like, hey, this is something that's a problem. It's very clearly identified in the blood work, and now it's having, you know, action-reaction.
It's taking a lot of guesswork out, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you remove the where do I focus? What supplements do I need? Mm-hmm. I know what I need. Carrie knows what she needs, and you know what you need. Mm-hmm. And there's probably some overlap in that, but if I were to take what Carrie needed, or I were to take what you needed, mm-hmm. That's not what we need. So it's understanding your personalized supplement routine and yes. something as simple as that.
Or also like what you need to eat. And I was not told that I was under eating, just FYI, after I got my consult. But if you're doing something where you're using templates or you're macro counting and you want to try to meet those numbers, but you want to try to meet them with the right foods, now you have something telling you exactly what your body needs. So that was really helpful for me to know, like for you, what you were told that you needed to eat a lot of beans. It was helpful for me to know
20 different types of beans.
Yeah.
Also, it validates my sushi habit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because what
you need fish and shellfish.
Okay. So, and that was keeping you optimal.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, anything that excuses you to eat more sushi or more of what you want, you're like, sweet. One thing that I thought was super interesting when I was looking at the recommendations, I don't know what I was expecting the recommendations to be. I think I maybe thought there would be something crazy complex out the other side of it. But having spoken to one of your colleagues, what I discovered was that between sleep, training, diet, and supplementation, those are the only inputs that we need to be looking at to manipulate everything that's going on with regards to our blood work.
Right.
I don't know what I thought I was going to expect to see.
Like
It was some. I don't know what I was
Yeah.
expecting. Like just something crazy complex that was totally out of the realms
Right.
of, oh well, your iron's out, so you need to do this ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's everything's within your control.
Yeah, so adoption is it like the whole program is worthless if you can't take the data and make meaning of it. So there's a lot of, you look at pro sports, there's a lot of meaningless tracking that's going on, and
What like?
people are tracking GPS, people are tracking sleep, people are tracking power, people are tracking all these things that pro athletes are having tracked, but it's just sitting in a portfolio
sheet or
somewhere.
something,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And I was at the National Strength and Conditioning Association conference a couple years ago, and one of the presenters was basically saying, stop tracking just to tell your boss you're tracking this. It's a waste of your athlete's time, and it's a waste of your time if you're not doing anything with it. And so our goal is to make everything that we ask of you and everything that we take from you, literally your blood, meaningful. And so you may have noticed that there were a lot of questions on the registration process.
Yes.
We don't ask anything that we don't use anywhere. None of it's just for fun. None of it's for statistical
Yeah.
purposes on our end.
Yeah.
Everything that we ask on that registration process is used in a recommendation somewhere.
One of the things that the dietitian that I was speaking to earlier on mentioned was that if she had the choice, she would have actually had like a 120 questionnaire. Apparently there's 16 major food groups, 16 questions that relate to each of those.
Right.
But she was like, I would be looking at breaking down your veggies into
Right.
like dark leafy greens and
Right.
colourful veggies and timing and frequency and
Right.
quality and all sorts of stuff. But I guess you guys have to mediate between how much are we going to get people to actually fill this in? If it's
Right.
130
compliance.
questions
Yeah.
about you're going to get zero compliance or
Right.
lower compliance. But you need to mediate that with getting sufficient data.
Right.
So that you guys can actually make it useful, I suppose.
And it needs to be realistic for people to get recommendations for them and be able to implement them in everyday life, like Jonathan said. So it can't be, a huge stretch. Like one of our recommendations is to adopt a vegetarian diet for a day, and that's only if
A day per week.
A day per week, and that's only if you eat a small amount of meat. So if it's someone who is telling us they're eating meat every single day, we're not going to go tell you to be a vegetarian because that's unrealistic for that person.
So it's making a simple change versus a complete overhaul.
Yeah, I wonder how many people at home that are listening are on one of the extreme ends of the spectrum. One where they are doing data masturbation,
Right.
and over tracking.
Yep.
Everything is down. I've got a couple of buddies who do that with their work Pomodoros, so they know every 25 minutes of their day they know exactly what they've done.
Yep.
And then I'm sure that there will be a lot of people on the other end of the spectrum who are just flying blind.
Yep.
But yeah, you are right. This kind of addiction that some of us get into, which I've swung in and out of.
They're called paralysis by analysis.
Absolutely. Yeah, you are right. So for the normal everyday person, we've spoken about athletes. For someone who's just looking to exist through life feeling better, is blood work going to identify why they may have particular allergies to foods or particular deficiencies that could lead to more serious problems down the line? Is it an early warning system for some people, or are there any other things to do with longevity that you guys really focus on?
So the company was started for that first point. It wasn't to help elite athletes, squeeze out an extra 1%. Our founder, Gil Blander, had a death in the family when he was a little kid, and he said, I want to live forever. And so this is his project of, how does Gil live longer, live better? And he went the route of academia, and he said, I can publish some papers that some scientists will see, or I can start a company and impact, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people, billions of people. And so he went with option number 2, or he went with option number 1 at first, and then transitioned over option number 2, and so the initial mission of the company was, like I said, was not to help elite athletes, but rather help anyone have more energy or better sleep or whatever. Athletes need that performance, whereas most people want to feel better. But the program works the same way for those two people. It works. It uses scientific studies to provide recommendations to help achieve goals, specific goals that are relevant to you.
Even if the goal's just to feel more calm or lose some weight.
Exactly. And then the food sensitivity question is one we get asked a lot. At this time, we aren't confident enough in the science and validity behind food sensitivity testing, so we don't include it. It's incredibly expensive and doesn't provide much utility on our end. So instead of just trying to make a few more bucks, providing a service that isn't as good of a quality, we just don't do it.
I think definitely based on what I've seen of what you guys have given me as a feedback, remembering that you don't know what I eat typically, the things that were highlighted by deficiencies in my profile seem to tie in very closely with what I know that I don't eat.
Right.
So
like beans and oatmeal, probably.
Beans and oatmeal. I just need to eat. I do just need to eat more beans, apparently.
We had an athlete that wrote a blog about beans are it was a hilarious title, and I'm blanking on what it was, but basically beans are her end all be all solution.
So what do you think moving forward are going to be the what do we say? What's the future of this industry look like with regards to blood work and stuff like that? Is it the sort of thing that's going to become adopted by more people, or is it still going to remain for elite athletes? What's the trend suggesting at the moment, do you think?
I think there's so many ways that obviously you can track different things about yourself. Now we can use the DNA plus blood that we offer, which if you have your DNA sequenced and you also have your blood work done through us, we can...
I've managed to splash myself in the face with that glass of water.
We can use both of those pieces of information to give you an even more detailed look at not only what's going on inside your body right now, but what you are predisposed to because of what your DNA is
particular
saying.
Genetic conditions and stuff like that. David was discussing his Ashkenazi Jew genes that he's got, and he was just lambasting them, saying how it means that he's got a predisposition to be fat, and he's
can't do dairy.
He's shy with dairy. He's not very good with, I think, like wheat or something else as well. And all of the things, we are the sum of our nature and our nurture, right? And if the nurture and the environment is able to be represented in the blood work that you guys do now, and that the nature is able to be represented in your genes, you do have a pretty comprehensive picture of exactly what's going on inside of you. I wonder, moving forward, whether or not things like this and more consistent testing, because you guys suggest to test every 3 months, right? Is that about right?
Sort of like the gold standard, yeah.
And that's to do something, get recommendations, make changes, reassess.
Right, and so we understand that that's not going to work for everyone with their budget or with getting into a lab, whatnot. So we're looking to add in more inputs that are sort of lower friction points. So adding in Fitbit, adding in Garmin, adding in this physiological data so that you can say, okay, my goal is to boost sleep quality. I've improved my magnesium or I've improved my vitamin D, and I see that I see a related improvement in sleep quality. Yes. Or my sleep quality is poor. Let's look at diet about, around how can we manipulate diet, knowing what we already know about you, to make a recommendation around improving sleep quality. So the goal is, and then adding things like microbiome or things as the science continues to support it. what are all the inputs that we can just mash into the, InsideTracker approach of taking science, distilling it into recommendations, and helping you improve. That's our process. And the more we can load into the top here, the better and more personalized the recommendations and improvements can be.
So you guys are working, I'm going to guess, majority on the front end, dealing with athletes, speaking to people and so on and so forth. What are the people that are dealing with the back end, the science and the data like? Are they just like fully plugged into the matrix? Like there's just
Carrie and I joked that we're the only 2 people in the entire company without advanced credentials.
It's literally got a couple of letters after your name, and then everyone else has got like.
It's true.
I only have a couple of letters in front of my name, and that's M, R, and S. But no, they are very smart, but very personable and awesome people.
It's a good mix of like super cool nerds.
Yeah. Is everyone in one form or another into fitness or sort of?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
So like our company outings, we went boxing and bowling.
You went boxing?
Boxing.
Was it nice to
It was so intense. It was not, honestly, for a company outing, it was 10 million times harder than I thought it was going to be.
I'm like still sore from it.
Was it?
It was in January.
Was it nice to be able to unleash your fury on that receptionist that never like passes on your messages?
They were like heavy bags that we had to, that we were hitting.
There was no sparring.
It wasn't each other, right? Okay.
But I kept checking over to make sure our CEO wasn't like flatlined on the ground. He made it through it.
Wow. That is funny. So do you guys understand, or can you explain a little bit about the process of what happens when science comes in? Because it sounds like, from the consultation I had earlier and from speaking to you guys here, until you're absolutely dead on that the science is going to back up something, you're not actually going to bother using it. So what's the process of, absorbing the science and then delivering it to the system? Is it the super nerds?
Yeah, so we have a team of thousands of interns that are typing away on the computer. It's a dozen or so.
Yeah.
Constantly researching new studies and constantly looking at things that are the biggest priority. Like for the endurance athletes is the iron group. How do we make the iron recommendations better? Or how do we just added hemoglobin A1C. How do we lump glucose with hemoglobin A1C and make recommendations? So they're either looking for new studies or they're looking for specific topics, and they find something, they talk about it in their science meeting.
In their super nerd meeting.
And the way it works is it's an algorithm. So it's a big if-then statement. So if this, then that. So there are a whole bunch of rules in the system, and the rules are written by the scientists. But it can't just be scientist one saying, hey, here's something cool, load it in.
Yeah.
It's scientist one proposes a rule, has to be validated by a second person, and then it can be added into the platform.
So you have like an internal peer review system almost.
Yep, of peer-reviewed studies.
Yes.
So they're super
peer-reviewed. The 80-20
yeah.
of the 80-20.
Exactly. So we're getting the best of the best from the best. And then there's an algorithm that goes into ranking the recommendations. So we have recommendations from 1 to 5 stars that are that system is based on the recency of the study, the type of the study, the number of people in the study.
It's a degree of certainty to the recommendation, right?
So like the bean thing is a 5-star recommendation. The oatmeal is a 5-star recommendation, but they're
bean thing.
I'm gonna keep drilling this bean thing.
Fine, man. Honestly.
They're like 99 cents. It's cheap too.
I know, you are right.
So the bean thing is something we're very confident in.
Yes.
And
5 stars.
Yeah. Whereas there are other things that supplement recommendations that might not be as strong or not. It's still valid, and but there haven't been 10 studies on garlic for glucose levels or something like that.
Let's say that someone who's at home might be feeling like they're just a little bit out. Do you see? We discussed typical trends amongst high performing athletes. Is there anything that you think, or that you see consistently, that you think people should consider doing immediately, even before they consider getting their blood work done? Are there some things, someone's like, oh, my energy levels are a little bit low, or my mood appears to be a little bit out, or my training's a little bit out? Are there some kind of very common issues that you tend to come up against that you could recommend for people to maybe try do this first, then try do that first?
I mean, I would say the easiest one and probably the most important that I can think of is just sleep. A lot of people who come to us, their cortisol is way off, and it's because they're not getting enough sleep. So our biggest recommendations are just cut the screen time, shut your phone off a half hour before you actually go to sleep, so that when you are sleeping, it's 8 quality hours and not, off and on, you're not in a good run. So I would say that that's a big one that we do see a lot of, and then just something easy that you can implement into your daily life.
Everyone's already doing it, right? What else? Is there anything else that you see that tends to be reflected in terms of diet? Is anyone eating too much of something or not eating enough of stuff?
Yeah, so we see 82% of Americans with elevated glucose, and the best
82%.
82%. So for the majority of people, adding oatmeal into their diet is the best possible thing that they can do.
Really? For elevated glucose, oatmeal. We published a paper on the impact of algorithm-based recommendations, or the personalized nutrition model that we follow. And we were able to look at recommendations, interventions, and improvement. And so we could see that some things worked better than others in terms of compliance. Like, another one we found was that the only thing that will improve low enough vitamin D levels is taking a vitamin D supplement, which sounds like it makes sense, but stand outside for 20 minutes a day. Didn't do it. Didn't work. Yeah.
Eat more fatty fish. Didn't work. Eat more mushrooms. Didn't work. So, back to the glucose thing. So if you do nothing else, eat more oatmeal. We looked at what are some of the best interventions across the board for men based on biomarkers. Mm-hmm. Eating nuts on a daily basis is...
Any specific type of nuts?
Whatever you want, really.
Yep.
Almonds, walnuts, etc. That improves glucose, lipids, testosterone, liver enzyme, inflammation. And most of those metrics make up our inner age score as well, with glucose having the highest weight. So if you're looking at one specific food that can address the bulk of the metrics that impact male longevity the most, nuts. It's nuts, right?
It is nuts. I can't get around, and I don't know what I was expecting to see or hear about training, recovery, or training, sleep, supplements, and diet. I don't know what I was expecting, but
train harder.
Yeah. I don't know what I thought it was going to be. Like, I had to go and do some, like, I had to up my meditation, or I was going to have to do whatever. Like,
it's in there. Yeah, you'll probably see that for cortisol.
Interesting. So you guys have got so much data on the back end, and like you say, you're starting to publish papers now. Is there a plan longer term with what you're going to do with the data? Obviously, people have got like privacy and stuff like that, but in terms of trends and things, the amount of data that you guys are capturing must be pretty powerful. Yeah,
we feel it's the largest database of healthy people that exists in the world, and
the largest database of healthy people that exist in the world.
Yep.
Fuck.
Yeah. So, like, point blank, that's pretty powerful.
Well, I mean, does that not put a pressure on you guys? Like,
it does.
You're now at the tip of the spear with regards to making sure that any analysis of this is as optimal as it could be.
Right, for sure. And it's a huge opportunity, and it's why the company was created. That's Gil's dream, to have this power to impact millions and billions of people. He looked at me one day. We were in a meeting talking about, do we go after thousands? Do we focus on millions? And Gil was like, 7 billion. That's our number.
Just get everyone.
And he was totally serious. Like, his mission is to help every human on the planet. And however we get there, that's how we're going to get there. But yeah, I mean, you look at, in the paper we published, we have some charts that are able to look at correlations between as this goes this way, this goes this way. This data doesn't exist anywhere else because there aren't people doing full, 43 plus biomarker tests on healthy people. Some of these tests are usually run on sick people to address from a medical standpoint, but we're able to see statistically significant changes and make better recommendations from it.
Is that a flaw in human nature, or is it a flaw in medicine at the moment that people only seem to look at getting this sort of thing done when there's a problem?
Yeah, definitely a flaw in medicine.
Healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta every once or twice or sometimes 3 times a year we'll get a customer. The customer will tell us that they were charged by Quest for the blood draw. So you walk into Quest and hand them your insurance card and say, "Here's what I'm testing. You're paying $2,000 for our $589 plan," and so it's unattainable for most people outside of inside the way that the medical world currently operates.
Yes.
You either can't get this done or it's outrageously expensive. One of the reasons you can't get it done is because it's not the area of expertise for a physician, so they're not going to do it. They're not going to do something. It's we were talking about before, monitoring data and not doing something with it. They're incentivized to not do that, and they're incentivized to do things that they can help you with, and that's not their area of expertise. They're essential in what they do, but they're go to a dietitian or use InsideTracker or something like that. That can help you with the blood work.
Yeah, and it's really preventative healthcare instead of just reactionary healthcare. And that's the goal, is to have everyone do it, and everyone's had their blood work done at some point in their life.
Yeah.
So.
But not everyone's got these recommendations, right?
Right. So for the majority of people, the data you get from your physical is enough to use for a $49 DIY plan and get guidance on glucose and lipids. And so it'll probably tell you to eat oatmeal and beans and nuts. But for the most part, you can't just hear that and know.
You want something in front of you that says, "This is for me." It's
like the personal invitation. I have a friend who, she's an elite marathoner, and the way she described it was like, "I know that I need to sleep more, and I know that I need to eat more, and I know that I need to take an iron supplement." But it took seeing it in front of me to see, this is Julia's needs to do list.
Yeah.
Versus most people should probably do these things.
Perfect example of that is I've had a back injury for around about a year now, and only recently did I get an MRI. I've been doing my rehab, and I'd been kind of moving in and out of different types of rehab movements. But it was only until I saw that I've got 2 bulging discs, L5S1, and I've got a Schmoll's node, as it's called, for me to actually go, right, stop thinking that you can do a lighter version of what you've been doing, quadruple down on your rehab, and let's get this fixed.
Right.
There's something about seeing it in front of your face. So we've talked about nuts, oatmeal, sleep. Is there anything else? Is there anything else that people tend to be lacking in, which manifests itself in the data that you guys see?
I would say iron in women. Jonathan already touched on that. The ferritins.
Iron in women.
Iron.
Iron in women, though. Not in men as much.
We see it more
definitely in women,
especially ferritin, which is a marker of your iron storage in your body. So
linked to that, fatigue and all that
we see that
stuff.
tends to be low. And just like Jonathan said, if that happens, then even getting out of bed can be a large task because you just have no energy. So obviously training's out of the question. So if you had a goal in mind of running a race or doing a CrossFit competition, something like a low ferritin level can really step in your way.
What's the fix for that?
Depends how low.
Yeah, you can fix it through food or supplementation. So
if you're super low, you need to bring in the big guns of a supplement.
Yep.
You guys give out an inner age figure. What's that mean? What is inner age?
So inner age is the age that your body is on the inside versus what the number says on your driver's license. So it's your...
I like that.
You never heard that one before?
No, that's good.
Dummied it down. And we use 5 markers that we've determined are the most important from the markers that we test in terms of longevity. So glucose, ALT, HSCRP, vitamin D, and testosterone.
Okay.
And all those
combined?
Those combined will give you your inner age.
I'm 31 and mine says that I'm 36. That is because I have quite high glucose. I'm right in thinking that that is one of the most heavily weighted.
It is, yeah.
Why is that the case?
Research on longevity, correlating glucose, consistently optimized glucose to better longevity.
Okay. And 86% of Americans have high glucose.
82%, yeah.
82%.
Yep.
What's that due to? Like, why is that the case? Is it high carb diets?
I mean, how long have you been in the States?
Yeah, a couple of weeks. There's a lot of big servings, a lot of sugary food.
Yep.
Sedentary lifestyle. I don't know. It does surprise me because although since I've been here, there are some large servings and some large people as well. Although that's the case, there's more wellness out here than there is in the UK as well.
But you've been in LA and Boston.
Yes.
So
is that unrepresentative?
LA and Boston LA in particular is a very wellness conscious place. I was just in Nashville, Tennessee for the weekend. Very not a wellness conscious place. So you get places like that it's a sign of status to go out to eat all the time. And we have research that shows the more you go out to eat, the more likely you are to have elevated glucose.
Is that really true?
Yeah. And
is that one of the things that you guys asked? I can't remember whether or not it was. Okay.
How often do you eat out or get takeout?
Okay.
And so, I mean, that's true in other places in the country too. Like if you eat out a lot, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe
you've got
that's
less control of your diet usually when you eat out, right?
For sure, yeah. And even if you order, if your intents are good, like I'm gonna get a salmon with whatever, you're getting sugar in the mashed potatoes, and you're getting sugar in the sauce, and you're getting sauce, and all these different things that you have no control over. So some of our recommendations are around, we've done blogs where we talk about like you're at a restaurant and you can ask for your food however the hell you want it. It doesn't have to be what's on the menu. But yeah, so getting back to your question of why do we think it's so elevated? Sedentary lifestyle. People are sitting from 9 to 5 every day and they're exhausted by the time they go home, so they're not going to the gym. And they sleep or they don't sleep, and they do it all over again the next day, and it's like a status symbol to be busy, and being busy is glamorized. And so if you're busy all the time, you can't do the things that you need to do for yourself, and so you're putting other things in the priority, and your health is the cost.
The comment about being busy, being seen as a sign of status, was something that I was reading by the guys that make the 6-Minute Diary. They did a free PDF called The Golden Evening Routine.
Yep.
And they talk exactly about that modern society praises our busyness. It's a rite of passage and a badge of honor.
Right.
That people who are getting after it, like Gary Vaynerchuk. All of the listeners at home will know my opinions about Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean, he's going to die a lot earlier than the rest of us because you can't talk about hustle and grind and sleep 3 hours a night, Gary, because it's biology.
Right.
Because your body will break down.
There are anomalies to that.
It's the same. It's the genetic code of that's the same likelihood as you being hit by lightning.
Right.
Apparently, to get that genetic mutation.
Right. And those people are all at the top because they have stuff going for them in their genetics, and because we have an athlete that just raced or just broke a fastest known time running south to north of Israel.
Okay.
So
How
it's
long
1,000 kilometers. It took him 10 plus days, and he slept 3 hours a night.
Just got through it.
Yeah, running 66 miles a day, or 100, about a little over 100K a day, and he does blood work through InsideTracker, and he just ran 10 marathons in 10 days, like 3 weeks ago, and and his data is great. And he doesn't sleep a lot. And I'm sure he would be better if he slept more.
Yeah.
But he is the exception to the rule that, like, you must get 6 hours of sleep or you must get 7 hours of sleep. He literally does everything. And he's able to do his job. He's able to be with his family. He's able to do sponsor obligations, things like that. But he's the, like, 0.00001%. And there's almost nobody like him. But the people that are like him are all at the top, and they're all role models of people who are like, oh, I'm going to be just like this person. And you can aspire to do some things that are similar, but, like, if it's not in your nature to, like, not need that, which it is for the majority of us, you're going to burn out and you're going to get injured and you're not going to enjoy what you're doing.
I'm going to fall behind. Did a podcast recently with James Clear, the guy that wrote Atomic Habits, and he was talking about how our genetics, they do not predetermine, but they do predispose.
Right.
And I think that as a little guiding influence towards what people do in their lives.
Right.
Like, if you struggle to put on muscle, trying to become a powerlifter is probably a bad idea.
Right. You might enjoy it, but you're not going to get to the top.
Become the best in the field. Yeah, exactly. And I suppose that, your guy, like, if he was, I don't know, say a long distance truck driver, it's probably wasted in that industry, like, where you're on a ticker timer and you got to be off the clock for 10 hours or 8 hours or whatever it might be. Like, this guy doesn't need it. Like, he's the guy that can go. So he's found himself an industry within which he can find that. So moving forward, what do you see the future of this industry looking like? Have you guys got any new markers in the pipeline that you want to use? And then on top of that, what do you think in terms of technology and stuff like that? Is there anything that the super nerds have told you about that's kind of coming up?
Well, we're looking, not marker-wise, but we're looking to add more mindfulness recommendations to the platform as well. So for something like cortisol, to implement yoga if you told us that you weren't doing that kind of exercise now. So things like that we're looking to add.
How would that manifest would that be cortisol again, realistically, in the blood work? Okay.
Yeah, so it's not only looking at specific lifestyle interventions that we hadn't either considered or we hadn't done a lot of research on, but also more inputs, as we were talking about before. And so physiological monitoring, microbiome, things like that are more new compared to blood analysis. And then getting, like, talk about super nerd. We can go super nerd on this.
Let's go super nerd.
Imagine you get a notification from your phone that knows your blood work, it knows your calendar, it knows the weather, and it knows, let's say your vitamin D is low or your cortisol is high, and you have back-to-back meetings, but hey, you've got this block of 15 minutes at 2 o'clock and it's sunny out. Like, go take a walk. You get a ping. Hey, it's sunny out and you have this little stretch of time that's available. Take advantage of it. So it's knowing.
That would be so sick, wouldn't it?
Yeah, super nerdy stuff, but people would dig that. Some people would dig that. So it's stuff like that. Our CEO jokes. I don't know if it's a joke though about spitting on your iPhone and getting data and getting immediate recommendations. That's probably a long way away, but it's not outside the realm of possibility.
I think there's been talk I've been hearing on some podcasts recently about future technology to do with, like, nanotech, where you can have these receptors that would just be placed in your blood, and they'll just be flowing around you all the time, giving, like, I think it's is it James Bond? In fact, I'm certain it's James Bond, where they, like, shoot something in his arm and then they're like, his heart rate's elevated and it's because he's having sex with someone. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, there's something for everyone, but no, meaning, like, you can go as advanced as that, or you can peel back a few less layers, and look at it through your iPhone or something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do get that. I think talking about the sort of the cultures and stuff like that, something that I've definitely noticed as a difference between the UK and the US is that busyness culture.
Yeah.
Like the US actually seems to be a little bit more relaxed. I think that the UK, and I'll be interested to hear if the listeners agree, I think that the UK does, I don't know what they're busy doing because they're not getting after it. There's not this kind of entrepreneurship thing below the lines that there appears to be in the US.
So you've spent time in two very busy places.
Yes.
So you're getting like the
unrepresentative sample.
Yeah, but it's true everywhere. And there are so many books and podcasts about like more. You must do more. And that leads to burnout. Now we're getting books and podcasts going the other way that says, you need to, you have your rest day for training. You need a rest day for life.
Your mind, yeah.
Exactly. And so we're getting to a point where like I have an Instagram account with a couple friends called Rest Day Brags. One of them is an Olympian and the other is a professional trail runner and obstacle course racer. So like they have some pedigree behind success, and they both run themselves into the ground by trying to do everything. The one that went to the Olympics 10 years ago now is still just now getting out of that hole that she put herself in.
Really?
And so we're glamorizing like sat on my couch for the afternoon. Like the only intervals I did today were couch to fridge and like stuff like that we're getting messages from people that are like, oh my God, I thought I was the only person that struggles with taking time off or sleeping in, or like we now have people bragging like got 8 hours of sleep.
That's such a good rhetoric to be pushing. I've never heard of anyone who does do that, but you are totally right. It's just not glamorized. It's associated with
being
laziness and complacency and not making the most of minutes.
Right.
But if it's part of the plan, I'm sure that Ben Bergeron, even with his making the most of minutes strategy, I'm sure that some of those minutes are rest.
I mean, every Friday is a rest day for his athletes, right? Through CompTrain?
I don't know if everyone has the same rest day, but there's definitely built-in rest.
A lot of rest days in there. Perfect example. Despite the fact that United Airlines broke my my phone holder, which is why I've got some slightly odd camera angles today, I noticed that as you go through their in-flight entertainment, they have a Headspace app in there now that helps you fall asleep on planes.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, Andy Puddicombe is getting absolutely everywhere. He's partnered with Nike. He's partnered with United Airlines. But, the fact that meditation has been adopted by an aeroplane. Literally available on the street. You think like, what am I going to do? I'll watch another Harry Potter movie or Avengers or something. Like, no, I'll meditate based on this. And it's curated for being on a plane. And that was like, that was
Did
quite
you do
surprising. No.
You watched Harry Potter.
No, it's too. It's not cool. It's not cool.
It's not cool.
It's got to be glamorized first.
It's got to be. I know exactly. No one would have known because I'm not. I wasn't on Instagram at the time taking a selfie of it. So, I think that as we continue to move forward, and as technology like Whoop bands and like InsideTracker and stuff continue to move forward, that hopefully more people will be able to understand what's going on inside of their bodies. But one of the things that I do worry about is that paralysis by analysis thing that you were talking about, that people become so bogged down in the data that they don't really get anywhere. Is the onus on the people to fix that, or is it on the platform to make sure that it's giving them the right output? Because obviously if people are just drowning in data, like what do they do with it?
I think the thing that we try to do is, out of all of these things that we can recommend for you, we try to have you choose, between 3 and 7 of these recommendations that we give you that you can actually use, every day or every week. So if you narrow those recommendations down to only 3 or only 5, then you're not going to be bogged down with having to change so many things about your life. You can continue to live, continue to train, to recover. And if you make these important changes, then it will move the needle for you. So for us, I think that's, an important part of what we do.
Incremental changes, right? What do you guys see, so to begin to round up, what do you see as an impact on your athlete's performance? Have you got any stats like that? Obviously, I'm going to guess they won't be putting their 5K times in versus all of their other things. But do you see any?
So it's hard to get that on the individual athletes. We've looked at some of the data around pro teams we've worked with related to injuries. So games lost. Look at the San Jose Sharks. They've had a lot of success with that. Improving around travel. So again, San Jose Sharks had the year that we did this analysis, they had the best away record in the league, meaning they were able to manage travel the best based on the data that they were collecting around when do we change practices and how do we improve, how do I make this skate optional and this skate required and get the players to buy in that they should sleep in on this day and they should show up on this day. So we looked at some data around that. I'm not sure we have much else at the organizational level or at the team level. But
injury is going to be such a big deal,
yeah.
Right? Like
So
injuries are just a manifestation that something has been pushed so far, and that something might have just been formed.
right,
It's not always going to manifest. Like someone's poor deadlift posture
Right.
isn't necessarily going to show up in the blood work.
exactly. We had an NBA team that the dietitian
Should do, yeah. You have
your
shitty
squats
posterior
suck.
chain.
squat shaming.
Yeah.
So we had an NBA dietitian that came to us and said, I think paleo is a problem. And I think it's a problem for our athletes because they're tired and injured all the time. and
Something's a problem.
and she was like, and I'm the dietitian and they're not listening to my nutrition advice. So I need this blood work done.
Who's doing the paleo? The athletes
The
just
athletes.
think that they know better than the dietitian.
Yes. So the culture in some of these organizations is they listen to the strength coach or they listen to the head trainer, or they listen to some guy that's been in the organization or in the sport for 20, 30 years, whereas the dietitians are credentialed, they went to school for nutrition, and that's their job. So she was able to get the blood work done and came back, and she was like, I'm right. Check that out.
Yeah.
Now let's make some changes. And injuries went down and fatigue improved. It's not to say InsideTracker improved their injuries and fatigue, but the platform that we allowed them to use, that we were able to have them use, allowed them to show their athletes, look, this is a problem.
Yeah.
Your lipids are out of whack, your cortisol's through the roof, calories, blah, 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 vitamin D. Here's hard data showing you what to do, and it's saying exactly what I'm saying. Now I'm going to help you implement it. And she did, and it worked.
You're totally right about that. It comes back to the example that I said earlier on about the MRI.
Yeah.
Like,
You gotta
until
see
I
it.
saw it in front of my eyes, and because everyone wants to take the path of least resistance, right? Everyone
It's
wants
easy.
to believe, oh, well, no,
It's not
that's,
me.
that's not for
Yeah.
me. No, that's everyone else. That's
Yeah.
everyone else's
I'm
lipids.
good.
That's
I'm
everyone
good.
else's.
Yeah.
That's everyone else's oatmeal
Yeah,
consumption.
I'm the 18%.
Yes, absolutely. And when you think like that, you actually end up doing yourself a disservice because you believe that you're not culpable to the trends of the market, and you're like, no.
You are the trend.
By its very fucking nature, it's more likely that you are than you are.
Right. It's like when people complain about traffic, right? Like, you are traffic.
I always complain about traffic.
Like, why are you going to complain
You're the
about
person,
something?
Carrie.
Oh yeah, I'm like going apeshit in my car.
I love
people
traffic.
All
I
of
think
these
it's
other people
hilarious.
Yeah.
also in their cars.
These people are going to work today.
I think it's hilarious. It's like, so anyway, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, that's not my problem. I'm just out for a Monday morning drive at 8:30 in the morning.
Along with everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
I do totally get it. I think if it's good enough for David Sinclair, it's good enough for me. And that was like the first thing that I saw when I was talking to him today. How much he's reliant on having something that comes out of the back end.
Right.
Because making the changes, it would be the same as doing everything that a CrossFitter does, or a strength athlete does, or a runner does, without actually doing strength CrossFit, or running,
Right.
Yeah.
you'd be like, right, well, I'm going to make sure I get enough sleep, and I'm going to make sure I get enough this, I'm going to make sure I get enough that, but I'm not actually going to do the thing that tests all of the inputs.
Right.
It's the output, right?
Yeah.
And the output for most people is training, but also should be
Right.
some form of blood work. I think, it doesn't surprise me that this is coming out of America and not from the UK. I know that you guys offer a service in the UK, and that people in the UK that are listening can get their work done. Link will be in the show notes below, as always. But the USA generally, to me, leads the UK with this. We're lagging behind. Like, people are still eating, like, mince pies and
Beanless
stuff.
foods.
Beanless foods. They're eating beanless foods. Is like, but honestly, the wedges of oranges as a halftime for rugby just is still a thing. Like, so.
Those are some of my best memories of third grade.
Wedges of orange.
Soccer, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I mean, we've adopted you at least. But I genuinely do hope that this is going to make people think with more care about what they're doing, because in the same way as the mechanism that makes mobility work for a lot of people effective, foam rolling and passive stretching and massage therapy, Professor Quinn Hennock, Doctor of Physical Therapy for Juggernaut Training Systems, on episode 13, I want to say, said that the mechanism that those things are working on isn't what people think, but if it makes them think about their recovery, then it is enough. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of almost what we're talking about here, that maybe even the blood work. So for me, potentially, with all of the markers, I might not have known that these things were going to be out of whack, but it was probably pretty likely that I was going to have low free testosterone because I'm overtraining. Probably fairly common that the oatmeal and the beans, et cetera, but because I wasn't thinking about it, it wasn't something that needed to.
You don't know what you don't know.
There we go. So guys, I'm really excited to go and have a look at the unit, which is next door. So throughout this episode, everyone will have been seeing all of the footage from behind the scenes. Can you very briefly take us through what your facility is and what we'll be looking at?
Sure. So it's a shared workspace.
Yeah.
We are in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is right outside of Boston,
Nerd Central of
Is
the
this
world.
Nerd Central?
Yeah. This is where
Center of the
MIT
world.
and Harvard and all of the smarties.
Just
the smartest of the
Dungeons and
smart
Dragons for 4 square miles.
No, seriously, this is, you're looking at MIT right over there.
Yep.
Harvard is where you came from, just up the river. Tufts is one of the top nutrition programs in the country. And yeah, it's the epicenter of education and health and technology. Google and Facebook.
And Amazon
and
is
Amazon,
in the building next door.
all within 50 feet of here.
Wow.
So
you're in the right place.
yeah.
Well, guys, thank you very much for your time. I really
Thanks for
appreciate you
coming.
coming on. Thank you for having me out here. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens if I do change up my beans, if I change up my oatmeal. And I hope that the listeners at home as well will have started to realize how important it is to consider these sort of things. In the same way as David Sinclair was talking about the fact that people believe that aging is just this process that we're along for the ride with.
Right.
I think people believe that a degree of ignorance of what is happening inside of their body is also like, oh well, I don't know. I can't see what's in my blood.
Yeah.
I can't see what how foods affect me and things like that. And I think that hopefully, as companies like yourselves and individuals like David begin to make people think with more granularity and like a higher resolution about exactly what they're doing with their health. Mm-hmm. It's not just enough to be like, oh well, like I'm making sure that I'm taking the stairs to work.
Right.
It's like, okay, like, yeah, fair enough. Like that might have been a thing 30 years ago,
right,
or 50 years ago when doctors were still smoking. Like, and like,
they still are.
Well, they're not smoking at the delivery table.
True.
I saw an advert not long ago that said it was for Camel cigarettes, and the statistic was more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette, and it was a doctor at surgery, like smoking.
That's horrifying.
Wow.
Yeah, terrifying. But yeah, guys, if you are interested in getting your blood work done, a link will be in the show notes below to the InsideTracker website. I will also probably be discussing exactly what we went through on one of the catch-up episodes coming up soon as well. But for now, thank you very much for your time. It's been awesome.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.